everybody, and welcome to another edition of OTH Sports View. I'm JP Butler. I'm joined by the usual gang, Shawn, Campbell, and Sam Wilson. It's early July. We are knee-deep into the off-season for the St. Bonaventure men's basketball team, but plenty has been going on over the last week or so, and so we thought today we'd come back with the St. Bonaventure basketball episode. Just in the last week alone, normally at a time when things are pretty quiet, there isn't a whole lot going on. A lot has sort of, come out about this team that has people talking, about St. Bonaventure and the Bonnies, and looking forward to the 2016-17 season. We know in the Riley Center some of the changes that are being made, the video board going up. Shawn, I know you were down there anyway to kind of see the progress there. The non-conference schedule, though not official, is basically out at this point. Players are back for the second summer school session, and they're playing at night, and it's nice to be able to get down there on some of these nights and see who's down there playing, what guys look like, what improvements they may be making between seasons here, how guys maybe look different physically. And so it's really got people talking. I mean, just today, Bona officially made the announcement on the switch from Nike to Adidas and apparel. And so there's just been a lot going on. And so we'll get right into it. We'll start with the non-conference schedule.
Sure.
It's not official, but it is pretty much out.
Yeah.
People are aware of what's going on. And to me, it's basically similar to what it was last year, maybe even the year before that, where it's kind of a mix of some challenging games in there, but also a lot of winnable games. It sets it up to where they can really kind of pad their win total, maybe going into the conference season with the 12 that they have, 12 this year with the exempt tournament. So Sam, just kind of talk about some of the top tier teams on the schedule and the way it kind of plays out to where you get your wins, but maybe some good RPI.
Well, I think pretty clearly the biggest name is Florida. They come from by far the biggest conference, the SEC. This is a team that in 2014 was the number one overall seed. They've kind of fallen off after that. A year later, Billy Donovan leaves for the NBA. Last year, though, they were in the quarterfinals of the NIT, which is certainly farther than the Bonnies made. 21-15. I think that's obviously the biggest game in Florida. First,
right. Anytime they have the Power 5 team that they play, and for the last couple of years it's been one a year. That's the game I think that people really look forward to as an opportunity to knock off a big new team.
Yeah, and clearly given their, I don't even know if you want to call them struggles, but just by their standards and what Donovan did for so long with those teams with Joakim Noah winning back-to-back championships, they don't appear to be at quite that level these days. UB is another big one, back-to-back tournament appearances. Bonnie's beat them last year though, so that's last year was more of a surprise I think with Nate Oates after
Bobby Hurley.
Yep.
Right. And that game's here, in the Riley Center. We know December 3rd.
And UNC Wilmington, another home game, right? 25-8 last year, won the CAA, lost to Duke in the tournament, which I think was a pretty good game from what I recall. It was a single-digit game, one of those. It seems like every other year, if not every year, Duke has one of those games in the first round, and anyone who's not a Duke fan is really pulling for
That's true.
the other guys. But yeah, clearly they had a lot of success last year.
Right, and this is a team that was top 60, top 50, I think even RPI-wise, and brings most players back from that team. So that's a good get, for Bona to have in here. And really, that was pretty much the last game added, from what I understand, to the schedule. The team that they beat in the CAA final last year, Hofstra, that's the team that Bona is going to have to go back to, make the return trip to this year. I don't know if they'll be, as good. They lose the two Niagara transfers, Tanksley and Wanye Green, who was tremendous. But, always, going against a Mahalik team is never easy, for Bona.
Yeah.
So
And the other big thing is Mahalik old team. They're going to be playing in the Big Four Classic again, which was last held in 2014. Same two matchups, Bana Niagara and UB Canisius, which I think is great for basketball in the area that they were able to bring that back at I believe it'll be the KeyBank Center by now. By then, it's the first Niagara Center now.
Right. And I think last time around they drew pretty well, around 7,000 I want to say, and so as Sam said, it'll be up in Buffalo. Same two matchups, and that I believe is December 17th up there. Another thing for just kind of local fans to look forward to, and that's kind of what they have on the schedule this year, is just different things that really pique your attention a little bit. The fact that they're going to Austin, Texas for that 3-day Lone Star shootout. We know that their first opponent in that will be Central Michigan, and then from there we'll see who they play. The fact that they're going to be playing Florida down there, the fact that the Big Four Classic is back this year, and then the home games. They open with St. Francis, PA on November 12th in the Riley Center. I believe that's actually going to be an afternoon game on a Saturday. They've got UB here, Siena here, Canisius here, Army here, which is probably a bye game, and so at Hofstra, like we said. So a schedule, again, we can go into, is it a tough enough non-conference schedule? Last year, that's one of the reasons that the committee wanted to give for leaving Bana out. Bana, doesn't subscribe to that. They believe they did what needed to be done last year to make it, and if they can replicate that, that should be what is good enough to make it. And this non-conference schedule sets up the same way, where they can, certainly win a lot of games, and maybe have a nice win in there too to stand out, at the end.
I mean, you could say last year's wasn't tough enough, but I mean, they lost 3 games. Say if they didn't lose to Siena or Hofstra, maybe that changes enough for the committee to put them in.
Right.
So I mean, I don't know as if they really needed to upgrade it that much.
Yeah.
So they might be in pretty good shape.
That's a good point. I mean, if you just win one more, you beat a team like Hofstra who had a top 100 RPI, you're probably in, and nobody's saying anything about the non-conference schedule. And I think so in this particular instance, they stuck to their guns, because that was going to be one of the questions I was going to ask. Do you feel the need? I didn't really get a chance to after the season, but hearing that from the committee, do you feel the need to have to make it more difficult, to change your approach and how you schedule this year? Clearly they didn't feel the need necessarily to do that. They wanted to, they sort of had a template in place where we want the Power 5 team, we want maybe 1 or 2 challenging road games, we want some of those solid mid-majors, Central Michigan, Arkansas Little Rock is in that Lone Star showcase. They were a top 100 RPI team last year. UB, you put all those things together, give yourself an opportunity for 9, 10 wins and what you do in the conference.
I mean, also playing in an exempt tournament, that adds a couple of non-conference games too, right? That's my understanding. So, I mean, a chance to kind of rack up maybe a couple more
opportunities for wins.
A big difference to me this year is last year they didn't leave New York State in the non-conference portion of the schedule.
That's a good point. That's something we hadn't even talked about.
A couple of big road trips in the non-conference, which doesn't really happen every year.
Between going to Syracuse and going to Florida.
Right. And that the 2 big ones, they all fall right around the same time. So November 17th, a Thursday, down in Florida. They're playing that game in Lakeland because Syracuse's on-campus facility, Florida's on-campus facility is going through some renovations, and so I think the first couple of their non-conference games have to be moved. And then early the following week, starting Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, is that Lone Star thing. So they'll be going right from Florida over to Texas. So they'll be gone, for a while, and won't be back until pretty much Thanksgiving Day, basically. So again, reason for optimism, I think, with the schedule, but certainly other, reasons for optimism here in July as we talk about the Bonnies, what they have back. We saw a couple of these guys last week playing. They didn't have as many back as I thought they would. Normally, when they're playing these games after Schmidt's camp, you'll have, everybody but maybe 1 or 2 there this year there were 6 guys, 6 current scholarship guys there playing, and a 7th, David Ando, was there, but has a boot on his foot right now. He injured his ankle early in the summer, but it's nothing that's supposed to be too serious going forward. But the likes of Idris Taki and Courtney Stockard and Nelson Caputo and Derek Woods were here with 2 of the 3 incoming freshmen, Tariq Coburn and Amadi Peasy, so it was an opportunity to see those guys. But the original point, what they have back this year, certainly a reason for optimism, especially with Jalen Adams back as a junior.
Yeah, when you have a junior who's already been a first-team all-conference guy, that isn't something that happens every year at St. Bonaventure, and I think that's really fueling the optimism. Even when they lose 2 huge guys, I mean, people are still feeling pretty good about this next season, and I think he's a big part of it. Some of the other guys they have back, some of the guys they've added, they really don't want to miss a beat after that special season.
And that's a good point. The fact that Bona has maybe gotten to a point here where you can lose a guy like Deion Wright and Marcus Mosley, 2 of the best players, the most productive players to come through here, you know, in this millennium, certainly, if not before that, and still feel pretty good about where you're going to be.
I think
that doesn't happen.
That is a big step forward, because you just think 4 years ago, Andrew Nicholson, who we'll get to later, there's some news about him, he leaves, and I think all the fans were anticipating a drop off, and that's kind of what happened for a year or so.
Sure. And that was the case for the last couple of years, you know, the years after that, where you know, they would lose that senior class, and you think, well, what are they going to do now? They don't have, you know, they would lose Demetrius Conger and Eric Mosley and Chris Johnson. And you think, well, they lose a ton there. Or then they would lose Matthew Wright, Marquis Simmons, and Charlon Kloof, and you're like, oh, you know, what are you going to do here? And now you're to the point where you lose, you know, 2 of the best in those 2, and you feel, you know, pretty good that they could have a roster again that could really sort of compete near the top of the A-10 again. And like you said, Adams is certainly a big part of that, probably, if not the best returning player in the A-10, one of the 2 or 3 best, we would certainly say. And then, you know, again, with the steps that, you know, Denzel Gregg took last year, where he goes from kind of a shaky sophomore to a co-6 man of the year. The steps that Idris Taki took last year, and he's somebody I wrote about for today, going from a guy who, you know, didn't do a whole lot in the 8 minutes he got as a freshman last year. He's a starter. He brings the intangibles that he had, you know, defense and hustle, and then all of a sudden he becomes a much better offensive player towards the end of the season, where he was the guy that was giving you almost 8 points a game, you know, down the stretch there when they were really making their move. And then, like we said, the guys that they have coming in that they're really optimistic about. Courtney Stockard was one of them. We saw him playing last week. Certainly he still has a lot to prove. It's been, you know, over a year and a half now since his last actual organized game of basketball. He's never played a Division I minute yet. But, you know, what they think they're getting with him, what he did at the junior college level, and, he, you know, the way he was playing even last week in pickup games looked, you know, pretty good. A guy that can certainly score.
And I think Mark Schmidt mentioned that he might be a benefit that he did have that year kind of getting familiar with the program, with the system. So maybe he's a guy who can really just take off right from the beginning.
Right, and I think the expectation will be that he can come in and be able to play and contribute, you know, right away. And I mean, he was supposed to be, he was talked about as being the starting small forward going into last season, you know. And so if they thought that highly of him before he broke his foot, you know, going into this year with a year in the system, like you said, because he was practicing. He got to the point after the injury where he was practicing with the team.
It's just too late to
really make it worth it for him. And so having a guy like that, you know, maybe bringing in a guy like Aboko and the experience that he brings at the ACC level from Syracuse, you know, we'll see what he does ultimately. But, you know, I think just having that experience, and especially that position where they needed some help and experience, And what Ando might bring is a guy who's been at that level for 3 years now. And
Matt Mobley.
And Matt Mobley, maybe, and to me, he's the most, he's probably the most intriguing guy to me right now, or he's like an X Factor type guy to me right now. I was really hoping that he would be around last week. He was one of the guys that wasn't. Adams wasn't here, Mobley wasn't here, Boko wasn't here, Greg wasn't here, so those are some of the guys you wanted to see. But from all accounts, this guy has really been turning some heads in practice and in pickup games, and what he did at Central Connecticut. I mean, that's a low level. That's the Northeast level, but still, he's averaging 17, 18 points a game as a sophomore, really filling it up as both a shooter and a slasher scorer, a guy that can score in a multitude of ways. And the I think expectation, maybe not quite right off the bat what he was doing at Central Connecticut, but that he'll come in and be that kind of.
Yeah, I think as much excitement as there is, there's still a lot of mystery about this team,
Yeah.
a lot of the pieces, and I think that's one of the most exciting things as we head into October, get closer to October, and get practice rolling.
Right. For as much optimism as there is, there are a lot of question marks, as you said too. It's just a matter of if it does all fall into place, that they could have a pretty good season again this year. But it does have to all fall into place. Last year they went into the season with 4 starters that they knew pretty much what they were getting, and those spots were solidified with Adams and what would have been Stockard and Posley and Wright. This year, for as much as we think they could have, there's really only one definite starter, it seems like, with Adams, and everything else may be, open to, a little bit of competition there. I still think Taki will probably be a starter.
I think so.
Given all that he does in a multitude of areas for them. And I think Denzel Gregg might have the opportunity to start this year.
That'll be interesting with him.
Senior.
It's hard to tell, I think.
Yeah.
He played pretty well off the bench, and he's done a little bit of both.
And so that's the thing, maybe, because he did play really well off the bench, they want to do that again with him, but they don't necessarily have to do that this year if they have a little bit more depth. He would be somebody that could maybe, start and kind of present them an element of being able to go small, and sort of versatile right out of the gate. And so we'll see what happens. But no matter what, even on July 7th here, people are talking about what's going on with this roster, what's going on with the schedule, the changes to the Riley Center with the video board, and the court may take on a new look next year. The apparel change from Nike to Adidas and everything that does for them. All sorts of things happening right now, and we'll certainly continue to see how it unfolds for them this summer. We'll probably